Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakundalagun Giri Govardhana Ki Vrajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Nama Ki Mayapur Navadip Dhamma Ki Ganga Maya Muna Maya Ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
In the shelf there should be a song called Vidyara Vilasa. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 12. Rahugana converses with Jadabharata, text number 7. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan. If in unison would be much better. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrannan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano न शोभसे वृद्ध सभासु द्रष्टः। It's not drashta, it's dhrashta. Dhrashta means arrogant fellow. Okay. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrunnan excuse me. Vishtya nigrunnan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddha sabhasu dhrashtaha. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrunnan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddha sabhasu dhrashtaha. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrunnan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddha sabhasu drashtaha. Ladies, please. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrunnan niranugrahosi janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddha sabhasu drashtaha. Shochanimam stvam adhikashtadinan vishtya nigrunnan niranugrahosi Janasya goptasmi vikathamano na shobhase vriddha sabhasu drashtaha. Shochan, lamentable. Iman, all these. Tvam, you. Adhikashtadinan, poor persons suffering more pains because of their poverty-stricken position. Thank you. Vishtya, by force. Nighranan, seizing. Niranugraha asi, you have no mercy in your heart. Janasya, of the people in general. Gopta asmi, I am the protector, king. Vikathamanaha, bragging. Nashobhase, you do not look very good. Vriddha sabhasu, in the society of learned persons. Drashtaha, simply impudent. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It is a fact, however, that these innocent people carrying your palanquin without payment are certainly suffering due to this injustice. Their condition is very lamentable because you have forcibly engaged them in carrying your palanquin. This proves that you are cruel and unkind. Yet, due to false prestige, you were thinking that you were protecting the citizens. This is ludicrous. You were such a fool that you could not have been adored as a great man in an assembly of persons advanced in knowledge. This is what it means to be slapped by the spiritual master. This is really bad. He calls him ludicrous, and he calls him... learned persons won't even acknowledge your presence. Purport. King Rahugana was proud of being king, and he felt he had the right to control the citizens as he liked. But actually he was engaging men in carrying his palanquin without payment, and therefore he was causing them trouble without reason. Nonetheless, the king was thinking that he was the protector of the citizens. Actually, the king should be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For this reason, he is called Naradevata, the Lord among human beings. However, when a king thinks that because he is the head of the state, he can utilize the citizens for his sense gratification, he is in error. Such an attitude is not appreciated by learned scholars. According to the Vedic principles, the king should be advised by the learned sages, brahmanas and scholars, who advise him according to the injunctions given in the Dharma Shastra. The duty of the king is to follow these instructions. Learned circles do not appreciate the king's utilizing public endeavor for his own benefit. His duty is to give protection to the citizens instead. The king should not become such a rogue that he exploits the citizens for his own benefit. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, the heads of government will be plunderers and thieves. These thieves and plunderers take the money and property of the public by force or connivance. Therefore it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Rajanyer Nighraner Dasyu Dharmabhi. As Kali Yuga advances, we can see that these characteristics are already visible. We can certainly imagine how deteriorated human civilization will be by the end of Kali Yuga. Indeed, there will no longer be a sane man capable of understanding God and our relationship with Him. In other words, human beings will be just like animals. At that time, in order to reform human society, Lord Krishna will come in the form of Kalki Avatar. His business will be to kill all the atheists, because ultimately the real protector is Vishnu or Krishna. The Lord incarnates and sets things in order when things are mismanaged by so-called kings and heads of government. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Of course, this takes many years, but the principle is there. When the king or God, the principle is there. He should not take charge of ruling the people. Actually, the supreme proprietor of everything is Lord Vishnu. He is the maintainer of everyone. The king, the father, and the guardian are simply representatives of Lord Vishnu, empowered by him to look after the management and maintain things. It is therefore the duty of the head of state to maintain the general populace in such a way that people will ultimately know the goal of life. Nate vidhu svarthagatim hi Vishnum. Unfortunately, the foolish governmental head and the general populace do not know the ultimate goal of life is to understand and approach Lord Vishnu. Without this knowledge, everyone is in ignorance, and all society is crowded with cheaters and cheated. Om Agyanat Mirandhasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adigora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Did you all get a copy of the song? I can't sing today, but this is a song by Bhakti Vinod Thakur called Vidyara Vilase. The word Vilasa Vilasa means enjoyment, and Vidyara means enjoyment in material knowledge. So this is a song by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. The back has translation. First, with great enthusiasm, I spent my time in the pleasures of mundane learning and never worshipped your lotus feet, O Lord. Now you are my only shelter. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew, for I considered the acquisition of material knowledge to be life's true goal. Are we all right here? We're reading translation. Translation for verse number 2. Sean, the page on your left hand. Verse number 2. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew, for I considered the acquisition of material knowledge to be life's true goal. How fruitless these hopes turned out to be, for all my knowledge proved feeble. Now I know that such erudition is actually pure ignorance. All the so-called knowledge of this world is born of the flickering potency of your illusory energy, Maya. It is an impediment to the execution of devotional service to you. Indulgence in mundane knowledge verily makes an ass of the eternal soul by encouraging his infatuation with this temporary world. Here is one person who has been turned into such an ass, who for so long has carried on his back the useless burden of material existence. Now in my old age, for want of the power to enjoy, I find that nothing at all pleases me. Life has now become agony, for my so-called erudite knowledge has proven itself to be worthless ignorance. Material knowledge has now become a pointed shaft and has pierced my heart with the intolerable burning pain of ignorance. O Lord, there is no treasure worth seeking in this world other than your lotus feet. Bhakti Vinoda abandons all his mundane knowledge and makes your lotus feet the sum and substance of his life. Very beautiful song called Vidyara Vilase. The reason I picked the song, which we didn't sing, I can't sing today, but it is worth meditating on, because Rahugana is a king. He's learned. He's learned in mundane knowledge. He knows diplomacy. He knows politics. He knows other subject matters very well. But he doesn't know spiritual subject matter at all. And because he doesn't understand spiritual subject matters, he has engaged all his citizens in his service. He thinks he's the king of Savira, and all the public or the citizens are meant for him. So he's engaging them as palanquin carriers. It just so happens that one of the palanquin carriers is a spiritual master. And he didn't know about that. And now the spiritual master is chastising him to such a degree that it's embarrassing like anything. Okay? So first chastisement, he said, Shochan imams tvam adhikashtadinan. Imams means these people. He says, Shochan, it is very lamentable. Lamentable is that you're in such a sorry state. I pity you. I pity you that you're such an ignorant fellow that you've engaged all these people. And he says, Adhikashta dinan. Adhikashta din. Kashta means difficult or suffering. And dinan means all these wretched followers, wretched fallen people. When we come in front of Krishna, we offer ourselves as Dina. Therefore Krishna is called Dina Bandhu, the friend of the fallen. Or we say, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagatpate. Because Krishna is the only shelter for the fallen people. So he says, Adhikashta Dinan, these persons who don't have any money, who don't have any facilities of life, you've engaged them in your service, thinking you're the master. Vishtya, how have you engaged them? By force. They are not voluntarily serving you. You've forced them. How have you forced them? You're the king. And if they don't serve you, what will you do? You'll punish them. They're already suffering. And because if they don't listen to you, you will punish them even further. So he says, Nigranan. You've seized them. You haven't given them a choice. You have exerted such power upon them because you think you're their master. And so you're niranugraha. Niranugraha. Anugraha means merciful or mercy. Niranugraha means your heart is devoid of any mercy. You're exploiting your people for your satisfaction. You have absolutely no mercy in your heart. Another way of seeing mercy in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, there is a list of certain qualities that Krishna talks about. That everything comes from me. After that verse, he gives a list. Fear, fearlessness, violence, non-violence. The whole list he gives. And Srila Prabhupada translates non-violence in a very different way. We understand violence means causing harm to someone's body or mind. When we beat someone or harass their body, it's called violence. Instead of physically harming someone, we might issue certain words that hurt their mind. Insult, sarcasm, blasphemy, or spite, or some way by which we hurt others. We hurt their mind. That is also called violence. It's abuse. Physical abuse or verbal abuse. And Prabhupada says that if you don't do anything about another person's self-realization, then also you're committing violence. So standard of non-violence is very, very high. If you don't do anything for another person's self-realization, you're being violent. So here when he says, Niranugraha, you have no mercy in your heart that you've taken souls who are entrapped in this material body and you've engaged them in some service for you. But you haven't done anything for their benefit, real benefit. So you have no mercy in your heart. I'll digress a little bit. When we take initiation and we take certain vows, and one of the vows is no meat eating. So one would wonder, if it's a spiritual initiation, why no meat eating is such significance? No meat eating, no intoxication like that. The commitment the disciple is making to the Guru is not that I'm not going to eat meat. That is there, of course. I won't eat anything that cannot be offered to Krishna. So on one level, the commitment this disciple is making that I will only eat Krishna Prasadam. That's the vow. More importantly, the vow that the disciple is making is I will live a life of mercy. Because we understand, right, that meat eating breaks the pillar of religion called mercy. So when I say no meat eating, I am making a vow to uphold mercy. And the greatest mercy is to extend Krishna consciousness unto others. This is a vow we take. It's a very serious vow. It's a very serious vow. Like other vows. No intoxication means I am going to be austere. I'm not going to whimsically let my mind push me here and there. Like that. So Niranugraha he is being chastised that as a king, you are not doing anything for their spiritual benefit. You have no mercy in your heart. You're not benefiting them. And he says, Janasya Gopta Asmi. Gopta means controller, a protector. Asmi means I am. So he says, you're thinking you're the protector of all these people. How are you protecting them? By employing them. And maybe giving them some money or no money at all. You're thinking you're the protector. This is your arrogance. And he says, Vikathamanaha. You're bragging. You have no good quality, but you're bragging about yourself. Na shobhase vriddha sabhasu. If you're even in the presence of learned persons, they won't even care for you. Na shobhase. You don't even look good. It says, Narada Muni also chastises Vyasadeva like this. That he says, Na shobhase, what you have written is not good. He compiled all the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Upanishads. We get very upset. In fact, we get upset that they didn't appreciate us for a few hours. They just said, very nice. That's not sufficient. You should appreciate me for, again and again and again. But to say, not good, Here the Guru is chastising him like anything. Not good. What you've done is... And he says, Dhrashtaha, you impudent fellow. You're so arrogant. You think you're the master. So basically, the spiritual master is stripping this fellow naked, King Rahugana, and removing all those layers of false egos, identifying. You have impudence, you're arrogant, you have absolutely no mercy in your heart. You think you're the controller of people. You're employing people by force for your sense gratification. And the Guru's duty is to help the disciple identify his or her anarthas. What should the disciple do when the spiritual master identifies these anarthas? Abandon the Guru? Fall at his feet and fall at his feet and with great gratitude, fall at his feet and great gratitude, shed tears of joy that I'm walking around blind, not knowing what is happening. And if you're correcting me, I'm very grateful to you. Thank you. Because I'm a fool, I don't know. So sometimes the Guru exerts certain pressure and doesn't give us wiggle room just so that we'll face up to certain things that we've been neglecting, ignoring, or in denial, or just not aware. It is the duty of the Guru. The word Guru in Sanskrit means heavy. The modern Gurus are heavy by weight. They're just fat fellows and do nothing. But Gurus means heavy by spiritual knowledge. He is heavy with spiritual insight, and he is heavy with Krishna's empowerment to remove the excess covering of the soul. He's an expert. We sing every morning, Tatrati Dakshat Ativallabhasya. In Sanskrit, when you use the word ati, it means excessive or very much. So Tatra Ati Dakshat. He's an extremely expert. He's an extremely expertful at what he does. And because he does it so well for Krishna, Ati Vallabhasya, he's very dear to Krishna. Anyone would like to take the service of removing a soul from ignorance? It's a dirty job. It's a thankless job. Therefore, he is very dear to Krishna. When in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the chapter, in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the chapter, end of the 18th chapter, there are these set of verses where Krishna says, such a person is very dear to me. One who teaches the Bhagavad Gita to the devotees is very dear to me. And then he says, one who teaches others, one who takes care of others is very dear to me. So in that, Prabhupada expresses in a room conversation or in a letter. And this gallons of blood means to tirelessly teach someone that one should take responsibility for the Krishna consciousness of others. And the phrase he uses is, one should shed gallons of blood. One should shed gallons of blood for another individual or for others so that they may become Krishna conscious. And this gallons of blood means to tirelessly, this is not Krishna conscious, this is flattery. To tirelessly train someone in Krishna consciousness. Sure. That encourage, one should be corrected. And one should ask you, I did not know this. This is going to help me in my spiritual life. So here, he is chastising him, and Rahugana very nicely. Take it very, very nicely, without any resistance. And interestingly, he has already apologized. If you see the previous chapter, Rahugana said, I have fallen at your feet, and I apologize. Them say, hey, I said sorry, what's the big deal? Because you said sorry, now you should take it. You're so wonderful. Let's do some sense gratification. Oh, even more wonderful. Let's do it together. Sure. You should take chastisement. Sometimes we say sorry just to avoid the punishment. Right? Just to say, if I say sorry, it's going to help me in my spiritual life. My spiritual master is very compassionate. So his heart will melt in such a way that he will give chastisement. And it's necessary, it's important, it's helpful. Without the chastisement, one will not become serious. It's not that only chastisement is necessary to become serious. Sometimes chastisement is. It is said that you should give appreciation without any resistance. Just appreciate. And you should say, hey, I said sorry, what's the big deal? Because you said sorry, now you should take it. You should take chastisement. Sometimes we say sorry just to avoid the punishment. Right? Just to say, if I say sorry, then they'll say, oh, my spiritual master is very compassionate and his heart will melt. So his heart will melt in such a way that he will give chastisement. And it's necessary, it's important, it's helpful. Without the chastisement, one will not become serious. It's not that only chastisement is necessary to become serious. Sometimes chastisement is. It is said that you should give appreciation without any resistance. Just appreciate. And you should give corrections in a very measured way. Why? Because corrections actually make the real changes than the appreciations. If you keep chastising, only chastise, then nobody takes it seriously. And if you only keep appreciating without any correction, the person will not be serious in Krishna consciousness. And there's a Sanskrit saying, Ladane bahavo dosha, palane bahavo guna. Ladane means pampering. When you pamper a child too much, ladane, bahavo dosha, they end up with many bad qualities. Palane bahavo guna. But if you discipline a child lovingly, palana means disciplining. But it's important to call it disciplining with love. When you discipline a child with love, bahavo guna, they end up with many good qualities. So most people don't know how to pamper. When they pamper their children, for example, or we'll say when a spiritual master, if he is pampering, he doesn't correct the disciples, or a leader doesn't correct the followers, a king doesn't correct the citizens, a father doesn't correct the child or children, and just pampers. With pampering, what happens is the child understands that I have absolutely no responsibility in life. I can do whatever I like. This is misleading a child. Because when they grow up, they're not trained to face a world where it is full of responsibilities and they have something to do for others. So they become very frustrated. And they try to exert the same independence on everyone. And not everyone's going to be a loving father that'll say, it's okay. So the best lesson for them is they get married. The wife or husband, they will discipline them. Be careful, like that. So disciplining is very important. Now disciplining is with love. The other person who's being disciplined, so when we are receiving corrections from our spiritual master, or whoever is correcting us, we should learn to feel the love in it. Of course, it should also be done lovingly. If there's no love, you can't feel it. Right? If someone corrects us angrily, and you say, I'm trying to find love in all of this, it's not there. It should be done lovingly, and one should take it lovingly. It's very important. One who doesn't one who doesn't discipline, and one who does not take discipline, both cannot appreciate each other's presence in their lives. One must discipline. And sometimes it's difficult to accept discipline. It seems so uncomfortable. But that's nice. That discomfort purifies our heart. And that discomfort what is that discomfort? It is our insubmissiveness. That is that discomfort that Krishna is showing us. You're uncomfortable because you're not submissive. The moment you surrender, all discomfort goes away. All you have to say is, Dasosmi, I'm your servant. I surrender. And no difficulty. This is the trick for a disciple. That when the spiritual master gives an instruction, to take it without resistance. Then there is joy. If there is resistance, that is an indication of not being submissive. In some department of our Krishna consciousness, we're not submissive. So the spiritual master will then help make us submissive. He will definitely help that submission. In different ways, but it will bring that submission. Right? So here, Jada Bharata is chastising him. That's the first part of the paragraph. And now in the sense of a king, he is being chastised that as a king, he is not being guided by brahmanas. He is just doing something whimsically, thinking, I am the master of Sauvira. Then Prabhupada says how Kali Yuga will become. As Kali Yuga progresses, more people will be like this, that they will not take guidance from learned brahmanas. They will just be plunderers. Plunderers means power mongers who will just exert their power on others simply for their sense gratification. They become heartless rulers, merciless, because they want to exert that power on people. And it goes to such an extent, by the time Kali Yuga progresses, it goes to such an extent that the Lord has to intervene. Now it is serious business when Krishna has to intervene. Only when things go completely out of hand, that's when Krishna intervenes. Until then, his other system intervenes, the system of the material energy, by what's called Trividha Tapa. Misery due to one's own body and mind, misery due to someone else's body and mind, and by higher dimensional disturbances. Those things take care of all the other things happening in the world. So when there is a person who is extremely cruel like this, then, at some point in time he grows old and dies. Everyone's happy. Thank you. When Srila Prabhupada was negotiating for the Juhu property, Juhu is in Bombay, and Srila Prabhupada wanted to build a temple there. And the land was donated by a person called Mr. Nair. But Mr. Nair was a snake-like person. He could not be trusted. He cheated Srila Prabhupada and resold the land to someone else for a higher price. And so if you ever get a chance to read that whole pastime, it's very interesting. The fight between Srila Prabhupada and Mr. Nair. Anyway, I don't want to go through the details of it, but it was really tough. And Srila Prabhupada had already installed Radha Ras Bihari there. And it was in a simple makeshift tin shed. A tin on this side, tin sheet on this side, a little tin sheet on the top. And the deities were there, and Prabhupada said, you please stay here while I build a temple for you. Please don't leave. And Mr. Nair went and complained to the municipality that these guys have occupied the land illegally. So the municipality gave it done. So they came and bulldozed the wall, and they started raising everything to the ground, and they were about to bulldoze thing to the ground. Bihari was standing. In the last minute, somehow the devotees got a stay order from the government that don't break anything. It was literally like the very last moment. And this is how Nair was constantly being a nuisance to Srila Prabhupada. And it just so happened that Nair died of a heart attack. And Prabhupada folded his hands and said, thank you, Krishna. The demon is dead, like that. He was such a nuisance. Cheating. So either they do like that, or some other demon will come and they will fight them and they'll kill each other. Sometimes, two persons, they're pitched against each other just so that the good people don't have to intervene. One bad guy will fight with another bad guy and they'll figure out who kills whom. Or Prabhupada says that there are all these things like famine and war and pestilence. These are all outcomes of such cruel leadership. Where the leadership is benevolent, merciful, loving, there is abundance of resources. People are generally happy. When Maharaj Yudhishthira was the king, it is described that there were no extremes in weather. It was always pleasant. There was no extreme summer, no extreme winter. Rain fell exactly on schedule. Nowadays we see that we have unscheduled rains, like last night and this morning, unscheduled rains. And rains that Prabhupada said fall during the day is useless. Rains are supposed to fall at night. And during the day there should be ample sunshine, so crops grow very well. So it's called Ativrishti or Anavrishti. Ativrishti means excessive rainfall to the degree that there is flooding. And Anavrishti means no rainfall, drought. So when the leadership, the governmental head is a cruel fellow, a non-devotee, or he or she is interested in just plundering the public, then this is how there is disturbance in society. When Yudhishthira Maharaj was king, the entire earth planet was happy. She gave abundance of crops, abundance of jewels, abundance of minerals, just giving and giving and giving. There was nobody who was in any kind of distress. Human beings, animals, birds, insects, even snakes were not in distress. Even when Lord Ramachandra was the king, it's called Rama Rajya. When Lord Rama was the king, the entire earth planet flourished. Everybody was happy. That is what it takes. So the idea is that a king or a leader, if they are spiritually situated and Krishna is pleased with them, then the entire kingdom is happy. It flourishes. So the onus falls on the leader. And whatever sinful activities the king does, 1/6 of it is shared by the subjects. And vice versa. Whatever sinful activities the subjects do, the king also gets reactions for it. One time Srila Prabhupada was asked a question. When a disciple commits offenses, then do the offenses go to the spiritual master? Does he get reactions for it? Because that's sometimes commonly understood that that's how it happens. And Prabhupada said, it's not that the spiritual master gets karma because of a disciple's mistake. But he says that the spiritual master gets bad dreams. And as the leaders are strong, the followers will be strong. And vice versa. It's a mutually benefiting system. So I'll end with a story, just so that there's not heavy like that. That the king's purpose, he says the king, the father, the guardian are simply representatives of Lord Vishnu, empowered by him to look after the management and maintain things. What are we managing? What is the king supposed to manage? He's supposed to manage the persons such that there is no impediment in their pursuit of spiritual life. No impediment at all. They should all be, every citizen must be happily pursuing spiritual life, because they understand from the king and the brahmanas that the purpose of life is to understand Vishnu. Vidu nate viduhu svartagatim hi Vishnu. The people generally don't understand this. But if the king or the governmental leader is such that he or she encourages people's spiritual lives, then that's how people are happy. This is real management. That everyone should be encouraged and inspired in following spiritual life without being distracted by material desires, money, mundane education. He says mundane education is acting like it makes an ass out of a person. And then he says, now that erudite knowledge is proven so useless, it is working as a shaft and piercing my heart. I'll end with a story of mundane knowledge. Yamunacharya is a great devotee of Krishna. And he was born in a very, very, very amazing family of South Indian Brahmanas. They had visited Vrindavan while the wife was pregnant. And they were so inspired by Vrindavan that they decided that if they have a child, or when they have a child, regardless of whether it is a boy or a girl, they will name the child after the river Yamuna. So in due course of time, a boy was born. And he was named Yamuna. This boy is the grandson of Nathamuni. Nathamuni was the head of the entire Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And Yamuna was so intelligent, that very quickly he became well known throughout the land. Like how Lord Chaitanya was a super scholar by the time he was 14, he had defeated Keshava Kashmiri. Like that, when Yamuna was 12, there was news about a scholar that was coming to that place to challenge everyone. The scholar's name was Kolahala. He went to the king and he challenged, is there any learned person in your kingdom who can debate with me? And if they can debate with me, then I will give up my title. And if they cannot, then I want half your kingdom. The king said, wow. And he tried to go and find out who those scholars were, and everybody said, whoa, we're not going to debate with Kolahala. He's too much. Yamuna's teacher, he also said, I won't go. But Yamuna, he wanted to uphold the reputation of his teacher. So he said, if you give me permission, I will debate with him. And so the word spread, like a 12-year-old boy is going to debate with Kolahala. So the scholar started laughing. What will a 12-year-old boy do with me? So even the queen was very amused. She told the king, I can't believe this. You think the boy can defeat the scholar? King said, I don't think he stands a chance. So there was a bet between the king and the queen. The queen said, I feel that the boy will win. As if he wins, then what would you give him? The king said, if he wins this challenge, I will give him half my kingdom. And the queen said, if he loses this debate, I will forever become the maidservant of your maidservant. So the stakes were very high. So the date was decided, the place was fixed, the royal palace on such and such date. And Kolahala came on a big palanquin, everyone singing and glorifying, verses composed for his glorification. And came and sat, the king and the queen were sitting on the royal throne. Kolahala came and sat down. And Yamuna did not show up. So Kolahala started laughing. I knew there will be a no-show. How can anyone stand me? It's not possible. So the king sent a message to Yamuna's house. Why haven't you come? You're supposed to debate. Yamuna sent a message back. I'm not going to walk and come. Since I'm coming to debate with this scholar, I need royal conveyance. Send the elephants, then I'll come. So the king had to send his own elephants and a royal procession to bring Yamuna to the palace. So they sat across from each other, and Kolahala started laughing, looking at this little boy, 12-year-old boy. So he asked him some questions in grammar. And Yamuna answered those questions. Then he asked him some more questions, and Yamuna answered the questions. No problem. So Yamuna told Kolahala, you're not asking me difficult questions because you think I'm a boy. I'm a young boy. And as if intelligence is correlated with physical size. Because my body is small, you think my intelligence is small. If that were the case, then the water buffalo is bigger than you, and I should think that he is more intelligent than you. And Kolahala got so insulted. He's comparing me to a water buffalo. I'm like the undisputed scholar here. He said, okay. And he started asking really difficult questions. And Yamuna just answered all these. And Yamuna said, I will ask you 3 things. He said, I will make 3 statements. And you should deny these statements on the basis of scripture. Okay, you should prove my statements wrong. And he said 3 statements. So first statement, he said, is the king, the queen. He said that your mother is not a barren woman. So Kolahala has to prove that his mother, Kolahala's mother, is a barren woman. She's already delivered him. How can she be barren? So his first statement was that your mother is not a barren woman. So please challenge this one. So the second statement is that our king, he is free of sin. So Kolahala has to prove that the king is sinful. His head is ready to be cut off if he proves the king is sinful. And he said the third statement is our queen is very chaste. He has to prove that the queen is not chaste. So damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So suddenly Kolahala began sweating. You know when someone is sweating that they are nervous. So Yamuna said, are you nervous? Oh, no, I'm not nervous. And the whole palace became silent because they're wondering, how is he going to make statements? The first one, he has to show that his mother is barren. She already has a son. This fellow has a son. Is he not the real son? Or what's going on? So he started sweating so much that he couldn't answer. He fell silent. So when he couldn't challenge, he told Yamuna, oh, you think you're such a great scholar? Why don't you dispute these statements? Ha ha ha. Why don't you dispute them? So he wanted all the attention to go to Yamuna, and Yamuna will get punished instead. And Yamuna said, oh, very easy. He said, according to Manu Samhita, a woman who has only one child is considered barren. You don't have any other siblings. So technically speaking, your mother is barren. Oh, everyone started shouting, yeah! And Kolahala said, oh. I said, okay, but how about the other 2? Can you prove that the king is sinful? He said, sure. He said, actually, our king is the purest of all personalities. There is no sin in him at all. However, the king takes 1/6 of the sin of his citizens. I can't say that all the citizens are free of sin. So there is some sin that the citizens are committing, and 1/6 goes to the king. This is according to Manu Samhita. So in that sense, our king is sinful. Yeah, everyone is jubilant, except Kolahala. And Kolahala at the final, he said, can you prove that the queen is unchaste? Now, the king really was serious. If his queen is unchaste, he's going to chop people's heads off. Even the queen was nervous. Oh. He said, according to Manu Samhita, he said, our queen is as chaste as goddess Lakshmi. There is no flaw in her character whatsoever. However, the king is supposed to be the representative of all the demigods. So in one sense, there are multiple demigods, and so she is the wife of these multiple personalities. So in that sense, she is not chaste to one person. Yeah! Mundane erudition has some benefit, but really not genuine benefit. One has to be a devotee to get that kind of intelligence. And Yamuna was just showing him that mundane intelligence makes a person arrogant. And that arrogance is a symptom of ignorance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, for my so-called knowledge has proven itself to be worthless ignorance. Pierced my heart with the intolerable burning pain of ignorance. So mundane knowledge has some benefit, as we will study in Ishopanishad. Has benefit only when it is used in Krishna's service. Otherwise it has no use. It actually makes a person blind and arrogant. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls it slaughterhouse education. Okay, time for one question maybe. Yeah, Bhakta Look. Excuse me.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. You mentioned this point of being ready to shed so many gallons of blood.
Yeah.
For the blood.
Yeah.
For the Krishna consciousness of
Others.
even one
Yeah.
other person. So we also have the analogy of fanning a spark. So with a spark, you can either fan so much that it immediately goes out, or you don't hardly fan at all, and then it just kind of stays. To bear in mind, as we're trying to share Krishna consciousness with others, that we don't, in the name of like shedding so many gallons of blood, totally douse the spark, or also fail
that
to...
someone is drowning in our blood.
Yeah.
So much blood.
And we're feeling, I'm doing so much. I'm doing so much.
Drowning in blood.
Like that.
The phrase of shedding gallons of blood means that one should work tirelessly for the benefit of others. This principle, we call it the missionary spirit. However we call it. The first lesson in Krishna consciousness is that we have been benefited by the mercy of others, and likewise, to whatever degree possible, to whatever degree we have a realization, we must do something for the benefit of others. Something. Even if it is small, but it must be done. So some persons cannot give too much blood. At best, when they give blood at a blood donation drive and they stand up, they get a little dizzy because they're not used to giving blood. They've given more than they can. But people who are experts, they don't feel dizzy. So the point is, we should know how much blood we can give, but the idea is to shed blood, tirelessly work for the benefit of others. Now, tirelessly working does not mean working blindly. Fanning the spark, one should not become tired fanning. Oh, that's okay. I've been fanning for 3 days, nothing's coming. That's called giving up. But one is always there for someone else's benefit, whenever. Whenever. And it's also not that, oh, this is the only opportunity, let me get that fan there. A big blower. That means so excessively overburdening someone else. What it means, shedding gallons of blood, is to become more intelligent at what pace the other person is moving. So the first thing is what we call sowing the seeds. Sowing seeds. One must work tirelessly for these things. Like books, prasadam, harinam, you never know. You never know who it's going to benefit. If a person says, no, I cannot do some things because I would like to see direct benefit, hey, good luck. It doesn't work like that. So one must tirelessly do these things. Plan, engage, participate, go out. This must be done. This is part of shedding blood versus sitting comfortably in the temples Prabhupada has built and living a 5-star lifestyle. There's no time. One must go. And lifestyle. There's no time. One must go. And when those seeds, they germinate, 1-2 persons might come. Then one must also know how to help them in such a way that they feel physically doing. At the same time, there is some service, there is direction, there is training, there's encouragement, all of that. That's all part of shedding blood. Another is to keep thinking about the welfare of some other person. Persons who are, let's say, under our care or we are caring for, however, to think ways and means by which they'll feel nourished and encouraged. This is part of shedding blood. Some unplanned, uninspired something. Caring for them. Oh, their nature is such and such. This is what's going to help them. It's not just, when you're baking, you like to bake. It's not that everything is baked at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Some things are baked at lower temperatures. Slower, takes time. But if with our enthusiasm, you put everyone in the oven at 500 degrees, come out burnt. So you should know how some take longer, some. Knowing the natures of persons is part of shedding blood. Not that one size fits all. Of course, one program fits all. Everyone has to hear and chant. Because that's for the soul, that's the only way. But how to, within the social and philosophical, environmental context, how to make that happen? Takes thought. It takes one's own Krishna consciousness. So, if one is not sufficiently Krishna conscious, they cannot help others. Okay. I'll end with a joke. This is to lighten things up. There was a surgery that was scheduled for a patient. And the doctor came to the operating room with a garland. So the patient, before he fell into anesthesia, he said, "Who's the garland for?" So the doctor said, "If the operation is successful, it is for me. If for some reason it's not, it's for you. So we'll have to wait and see." Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You're a tough crowd, man. You don't laugh. You're a tough crowd. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I can understand if it's Monday morning. Tuesday morning also tough crowd. Phew.